This is my clearance lights, my marker light, my running light, and my low beam, my high beam, my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers. Now can you assist me with the back, please? This is my running lights and my clearance lights. My left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers, and my brake lights. First thing I'm going to inspect is my exhaust system. My exhaust system coming from the front all the way to the back. I want to make sure my exhaust system is not cracked or broken and is securely mounted by the straps and hangers. If my exhaust system was leaking, I will see a black soot. I want to inspect my marker light. I have one on the other side. I want to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. The cover is clear in color, but the light bulb is amber in color because it's facing the front of the vehicle. The function of my marker lights, my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers, my running lights. Now I'm going to inspect my mirrors, my fender mirror and my door mirror. I want to make sure they're not cracked or broken. They're securely mounted to the arm securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing hardware. Now I'm going to inspect my door. I'm going to make sure my door is not cracked or broken and is securely mounted. My door handle is not cracked or broken and is securely mounted, not missing hardware. My door open and close properly. My door, I'm going to make sure it's securely mounted by the hinges. My hinges, they properly aligned, they're not cracked or broken, and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. This is my inside seal and my outside seal. I'm going to make sure it's not excessively worn or torn or ripped and it's a full contact to the vehicle. Now I'm going to inspect my steps and my catwalk. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, not missing hardware, they're free of debris, grease, or any other object. I'm going to inspect my fuel tank. My fuel tank, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's not leaking. It's securely mounted by two straps. I have one in here and one in here. My two straps for my fuel tank. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. Is my fuel tank was shifting, I will see shiny metal because it's aluminum. Now I'm going to inspect the cap for my fuel tank. It's on the tight position. It's not cracked or broken and it's not leaking. I'm going to open it to make sure I have the safety chain. My safety chain is present, it's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted, not missing hardware. The rubber seal for my fuel cap is not excessively worn or torn, and it will not leak. Right in here is my depth tank. My depth tank, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken or leaking, and it's securely mounted, not missing hardware. The cap for my depth tank is on the tight position, it's not cracked, broken, and it's not leaking. The rubber seal inside is not excessively worn or torn, and it will not leak. Now, I'm going to inspect my cross members on this side of the vehicle. I have one in here, one in here, and one in here. My cross members, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. I'm going to inspect the frame on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure my frame is not cracked or broken and is securely mounted, not missing hardware, no illegal holes or illegal welds. Now I'm going to inspect my drive shaft. My drive shaft, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken and is securely mounted. My drive shaft is securely mounted by three U-joints. I have one in the front, one in the middle, and one in the back. My U-joints, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware, and they have a properly greased. I'm going to inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. I'm going to inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no frayed wire, securely mounted, not missing hardware. From here, I'm going to start inspecting my dual brake chambers. My dual brake chambers and my two clamps for my brake chambers, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken or leaking and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. The two hoses for my brake chambers, I'm going to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. Behind my brake chamber is going to be my push rod and my slack adjuster. I'm going to make sure my push rod and my slack adjuster, they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, not missing hardware. They're securely mounted by 2 pins and 2 cotter pins. If I pull on it, should be no more than 1 inch of the plate. Now I'm going to inspect my leaf springs. I have my leaf spring hangers. I have one in here and one in the back. My leaf spring hangers, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. My leaf springs, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken or shifting and they're securely mounted. My 2 U-bolts, shim, spacers, and 4 nuts. Right in here, right in the middle, is my leaf spring bushing. My leaf spring bushing, I'm going to make sure it's not excessively worn or torn and it will not leak. Now I want to inspect my inside axle seal and my outside axle seal. I'm going to make sure my axle seal is not cracked, broken, or leaking and is securely mounted, no missing hardware. If my axle seal was leaking, I will see puddle or spin trail. If it was leaking, I could not service myself. I had to take it to the mechanic or a shop. For my axle seal, I'm going to come in inside and I'm going to start inspecting my brake liners. I'm going to make sure my brake liners, they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. They're not allowed to have less than 1/4 of the inch of the thinnest point of the material. My brake drum is not cracked or broken and is securely mounted. Doesn't have any sign of the coloration indicating the overheating problem. Between my brake liners and my brake drum, free of debris, grease, or any other contamination. Now I'm going to start inspecting my butt rim. I'm going to inspect my inside rim, my outside rim, my inside rim, and my outside rim. I'm going to make sure my 2 rims, they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted. I'm going to make sure in my 2 rims, they don't have any legal holes or legal wells. My 2 rims and my brake drum, they're securely mounted by the lug nuts. All my lug nuts, they're present, they're on the tight position. They're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted. Doesn't have any sign of the distortion. If one of my lug nuts was loose, I will see rusty and these metal rims. I'm going to mention that between my 2 rims is no daylight and it's a full contact. In between my 2 tires, free of debris or any other object. Now I'm going to start inspecting my tires. My inside tire, my outside tire, my inside tire, my outside tire, and the face of my 2 tires. I'm going to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. This is a steering tires. They're allowed to be regrouped, recapped, or retread, but they're not allowed to have less than 40 seconds of the deepest point. These tires can be a mix match. The air specification on my steering tire and my dry tires is 120 psi. To check the air on my tires or to add air to my tires, I will do it to the valve stamps. I have 2. I have one in here and one over there. My 2 valve stamps, I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken or leaking and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. My valve stamp cap, I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware, and it's not leaking. Any of my 2 valve stamps are not leaking. From here, I'm going to inspect my mud flap. My mud flap, I'm going to make sure it's not excessively worn or torn or ripped and it's securely mounted to my vehicle, no missing hardware. Proper distance to my tire and proper distance to the ground. Now I'm going to come into the back. Here in the back, first thing I'm going to inspect is the frame on this side of the vehicle and the cross members on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware, doesn't have any illegal holes or illegal welds. Now from here I'm going to inspect my lights. The lights on this side of the vehicle, they're red in color because they face in the back of the vehicle. The function of these lights is going to be my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my forward flashers, and my running lights. My lights, they're not cracked or broken, securely mounted, no missing hardware. The white lights that I have in the back, they represent as my reverse. They're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. The light right here is my license plate light. I'm going to make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm going to inspect all the hoses on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure there's no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks, and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm going to inspect all the wires on this side of the vehicle. I'm going to make sure they're properly routed, no exposed wire, no frayed wire, securely mounted, no missing hardware. I will inspect the other side of the vehicle, the same way I inspect this side of the vehicle. I'm going to perform my air brake test. First, I'm going to test my ABS light. For this test to be a success, my ABS light should come on and off in less than 10 seconds. My ABS light is on. My ABS light is off. This is a good test for my ABS light. Now, I want to mention that for all my tests, I will use in my primary air gauge. I'm going to perform in a safety start. My truck is in neutral and my spring brakes are applied. Now I'm going to perform in the test, governor cutout test. For this test to be success, my governor should cut out no higher than the 140 psi. This is a good test. My governor cut out at 130 psi. Now I'm going to perform my leakage test. I'm going to release my parking brake. Wait for my needles to settle. And then I'm going to press my service brake. My needle has settled at 102 psi. I'm going to start my minute now. For this test to be a success, I should not lose more than 3 psi in this vehicle. My minute is up. My needle is at 100 psi. I lose 1 psi in this vehicle. This is a success test because I don't lose more than 3 psi in 1 minute. Next test I'm going to perform is my lower warning test. For this test to be a success, my warning light and buzzer should come out no lower than 55 psi. My warning light and buzzer come out at 65 psi. This is a good test because it's not lower than 55 psi. Now I'm going to perform my spring brake pop-up. For this test to be a success, my spring brake should pop up. This is a good test. My spring brake pop up at 20 psi. Now I'm going to perform a safety start. I'm going to wait for my air to build up to a normal pressure to perform my torque test. I'm going to test in my parking brake. To accelerate the process, I'm going to press the fuel, not exceeding the 1200 RPMs. air build up to a normal pressure, I'm gonna perform my torque test. This is a good test. My parking brake holding this vehicle in place. Now I'm gonna test my service brake. For this test to be success, my service brake should stop this vehicle. I'm gonna look through all my mirrors, make sure it's safe to do so. And I'm gonna move forward less than 5 miles per hour. This is a good test. My service brake stopped this vehicle. My vehicle don't pull to the right or to the left, indicating the brake adjustment problem. This completes my air brake test. Now that my vehicle is running, I'd like to perform my in-cab inspection. First, I'm going to inspect my seatbelt. My seatbelt, I'm going to make sure it's not rip or torn, and it's a securely latched and unlatched, securely mounted to the floor, securely mounted to the vehicle. Now I'm going to inspect my mirrors. I'm going to inspect all my mirrors. I'm going to make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. My mirrors, they're securely mounted to the arm, they are securely mounted to the vehicle, no missing hardware. All my mirrors, they're adjusted to me to drive. My window rolls up and rolled down properly. It's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. My mirrors and my window doesn't have any illegal sticker that's obstructing my view when I'm driving. My windshield, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken and it's securely mounted by the rubber seal. My rubber seal, I'm gonna make sure it's not necessarily worn or torn and it will not leak to the inside. My windshield is not cracked or broken or excessive pitting. I'm gonna inspect my windshield wipers. I'm gonna make sure they're securely attached to the arm, they are securely attached to the vehicle, no missing hardware. My windshield wiper blade has a full contact to the vehicle, to the windshield. My windshield washer fluid is working properly. My windshield wiper blade is not necessarily worn or torn and it's a full contact to the windshield. This is a 20-inch steering wheel. I'm gonna make sure it doesn't have more than 10 degrees of play. This is my city horn and my air horn. They're working properly. My steering wheel, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken or damaged and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. Now I'm gonna look for my light indicators. This is my left turn signal indicator, my right turn signal indicator, my forward flasher indicators, and my high beam indicator. All my indicators are working properly. I'm gonna start inspecting all my gauges. All my gauges, I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken, they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. This one right here is my oil pressure gauge. I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked. It's working properly, rising to normal. This one right here is my temperature gauge. It's working properly, rising to normal. This one right here is my RPM gauge. It's working properly. My speedometer gauge is working properly. I noticed that because I drove the vehicle here to the DMV. This is my voltmeter gauge. My voltmeter gauge is working properly. It should be between 12 and 14 volts. It's a little bit over the 14, but it don't affect the function of the vehicle. This one right here is my fuel gauge, indicating that I have enough fuel for all my tests. My depth gauge is indicating that I have enough depth for all my tests. I should not drive in this vehicle while less than 1/4 of the depth tank. This is my primary air gauge and my secondary air gauge. They're working properly. We noticed that because we just complete an air brake test. Right in here, I have extra fuses properly graded for this vehicle. And my climate control, I'm gonna make sure my defrost and my heater are working properly. My defrost is working properly and my heater is working properly. My fire extinguisher, I'm gonna make sure it's not cracked or broken or leaking and it's securely mounted, no missing hardware. It's fully charged and properly graded for this vehicle. The pin for my fire extinguisher is on the lock position. Now I'm gonna inspect my jockey box. Inside my jockey box, I have 3 reversible triangles. I'm gonna make sure they're not cracked or broken and they're securely mounted, no missing hardware. I'm gonna mention that my floor is nothing to start in my pedals when I'm driving. On my dash is nothing to start in my view when I'm driving. This completes my in-cab inspection and my air brake test.